We only got the Google Pixel 8 Pro 3 months ago, and the Pixel 9 Pro, which is 9 months away, has been leaked. This comes from OnLeaks, who, we all know, has an outstanding track record. And based on this is more than likely what the Pixel 9 Pro will look like. So what does this leak tell us? Well, 3 things. Number 1 is that it's going to have a completely new design. Number 2 is that we're also getting a new display. And then number 3 is the Apple effect. More on that later. And I want to start off with the new design. With the Pixel 9 Pro, Google is redesigning their phone for the first time in 3 years. Gone is the iconic Pixel 6, 7, and 8 design with the curved frame and the camera module that blends into the frame, and instead we now have a fully flat frame with a flat camera module too. The display also appears to be fully flat. On the Pixel 6 Pro and 7 Pro, this was curved, although less so on the 7 Pro, while on the 8 Pro, the display was actually flat, but the side bezels were a bit curved. On the 9 Pro, the bezels do not appear to be curved at all, but they do appear to be ever so slightly thinner than on the 8 Pro. The Pixel 9 Pro's frame does seem to have a slight curve to it, very similar to the iPhone 15's frame, which I do quite like as this will make it more comfortable to hold in the hand. And the frame also appears to be glossy here, making it stand out from Apple's and even Samsung's recent flat frame, both of which are now matte. I do prefer matte frames myself, as of course they don't gather as many fingerprints, although glossy frames do look more premium, which I do feel is what Google is trying to do here. And because it's polished, it is unlikely that Google would be using titanium here. We can see that there's only one single speaker grill rather than 2, like on the 8 Pro, with a SIM tray now occupying the space where the other speaker grill used to be. And I guess that's good, since when you're using the Pixel, you won't be able to feel the SIM tray all the time like you could on the 8 Pro, which did hurt its quality feel. Also, it is important to remember that even though we visibly lose one speaker, we don't technically lose one speaker, as on the 8 Pro, the right grill was the actual speaker, whereas the left grill was for the microphone, which is still present on the 9 Pro. And even though the camera island doesn't merge with the frame anymore, we still have the antenna bands in the exact same place as before, which tells me that a lot of the internal components have likely remained in the exact same place as with the 8 Pro, despite the new body. Which brings us to the camera. And I do really like what Google has done here. They've kept that same Pixel iconic camera strip, but improved on it. It now looks more similar to the Pixel Fold's camera module, which was indeed an odd one, as it was Google's only recent Pixel that didn't have the camera strip merge with the frame. It now seems like Google will be adopting this look for their other Pixel phones too. It is hard to say if the camera hardware is getting upgraded or not, as these renders are based on CAD models that do not have the individual dimensions of the modules, but rather only the dimensions of the entire camera strip. Personally, I'd say that it is quite unlikely that we'll be getting any big camera hardware changes with the Pixel 9 Pro, as number 1, the Pixel 8 Pro is already using a newer sensor than the Pixel 7 Pro and 6 Pro, albeit one with the same specs. And number 2, big design changes like we're getting with the 9 Pro are quite costly, so it is unlikely that Google would be investing in some big camera hardware changes this year. Okay, now one thing that is definitely not changing is the temperature sensor that a Pixel 8 Pro introduced. Initially, this was a pretty pointless feature as it never got FDA approved, so all that you could do with it was measure the temperature of random things. But literally yesterday, it got announced that you can now measure your body temperature, which tells me that it did manage to get FDA approved in the end. And this makes it far more useful, as if you're feeling under the weather, you can just use your Pixel to quickly find out if you're having a fever or not. And this is why Google's keeping this for the Pixel 9 Pro too. And finally, I should also mention the color, which looks to be the same obsidian black as with the Pixel 8 Pro. However, it is worth remembering that the CAD-based renders do not have any color on them. So this was likely just OnLeaks' guess. The final colors may look different. And speaking of colors, Google has just launched their mint color for the Pixel 8 Pro today, and they've just sent it over. I believe this is the first time ever that Google has done a mid-cycle color refresh. I think it looks good. It is very pastel and closer to white than to actual green. So for people who wanted a white Pixel 8 Pro and you weren't happy with the porcelain color, which is more of like a cream, then this would be a great choice for you. Which makes me think that maybe we would see the pure white finish making a return with the Pixel 9 Pro this year. And especially if this model sells well, we could also see a green Pixel 9 Pro. Personally, I would love to see something that's a bit darker, kind of like the Flip 5 screen. Absolutely love that. Speaking of green, if you want to get this beautiful green wallpaper that we have on our mint green Pixel 8 Pro, it is part of our tropical topography pack from our app wallpapers. We've launched this in mid-January. Of course, we have also released a number of other new packs ever since, including our most recent one, Lava Layers, which looks especially good on a Pixel. And tomorrow, Friday the 26th at 5 p.m. UK time, we are launching our 8th new pack for January. We posted a tease of it on Instagram, so if you want to leave a comment on that post with what you think the name of the pack is, I'm going to pick 3 random comments and give you guys a 6-month full access code to wallpapers. The second thing that this leak tells us is that we are also getting a new display, one that would be smaller at 6.5 inches according to OnLeaks, as opposed to the Pixel 8 Pro's 6.7-inch display. Twitter user Austin Murphy claims that it might actually be closer to 6.7 inches again, to which OnLeaks responded that he doesn't need to measure the phones from rounded corner to rounded corner, rather than from squared off corner to squared off corners like manufacturers do, hence why his measurements may appear smaller. Still, he hasn't really given us an updated display number, and the original My Smart Price article that OnLeaks collaborated on, that one is still showing 6.5 inches. And if this is indeed the case, it would be a noticeable decrease from the 8 Pro, meaning that Google is either aiming on making their phones more compact this year, or they are aiming on launching a Pixel 9 Ultra with an even bigger screen and even more features than the Pixel 9 Pro. Personally, I do think that Google making their display smaller might impact their sales, as users who want the biggest displays will go for the S24 Ultra, which comes with a 6.8-inch display, or the iPhone 15 Pro Max, which comes with a 6.7, or the upcoming 16 Pro Max, which is set to come with a 6.9-inch display, or any of the other Chinese Android manufacturers, all of which offer some pretty large display sizes. And this is why I am personally hoping for a Pixel 9 Ultra, as having such a model that they could then sell for $1,200 or so, matching the price of the 15 Pro Max or PS24 Ultra, would be a great way for Google to add some more advanced camera hardware, like a 1-inch sensor or even dual telephoto modules like Samsung tends to do. And the third thing that this leak tells us is that the Apple effect is real. Although I do love the design of the Pixel 9 Pro more than the 8 Pros, if you were to just look at the front of the phone and change the camera cutout to a dynamic island, it would look identical to an iPhone. Same for the frame, which looks almost identical to the 15 Pro's frame. And Google isn't the only company taking heavy inspiration from Apple's design language. Samsung is doing this too. The S24 and S24 Plus also feature flat frames now, and when I was holding them in my hands, they felt almost identical to how an iPhone feels. Personally, I do prefer a flat frame as it adds extra grip. And yes, I know there's only so many ways that you can design a frame in, but still, I'm a bit sad to see that these companies are abandoning their identity in favor of doing what Apple does and trying to appeal more to Apple fans. And this isn't the first time that Apple does something and the entire industry follows. We've seen the same with a headphone jack or the charger in the box. And that's the thing, Apple isn't always right. Sometimes they make some bad choices, yet the entire industry ends up following Apple despite knowing that some of these choices might be bad for their customers. I don't think that having a flat frame is necessarily a bad choice, at least not when compared to removing the headphone jack or the charger from the box. Of course, having a flat frame does make the phone cheaper and easier to manufacture, and you also save some space inside. But it does also make the phone less comfortable in the hand, something that some people may not like. But yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts on all of this. And do stay tuned for more Leaksumers episodes, as just as we were finishing this video, the standard Pixel 9 got leaked as well, which I think is probably even more interesting than the Pixel 9 Pro. Do leave a comment down below if you guys would like to see a separate video on that. I'm Daniel, this has been ZONEofTECH, and I'll see you guys in the next one. ZONEofTECH, signing out. Cheers.